Mumbai, late 1960s. Back then, the city didn't sleep, it hustled. The docks smelled like diesel, sweat, and secrets. And in the crowded lanes of Dongri, one skinny kid was learning how the world really worked. That kid was Dawood Ibrahim. Dongri, where survival was the first lesson. Dongri wasn't some polished neighborhood. Nah, this place was tight alleys, packed buildings, and loud streets where everybody knew your business. Dawood grew up in a modest home. His father, Ibrahim Kasker, was a police constable, strict guy, straight-laced, by the book. And that's where the irony started. A cop's son, turning into one of the most wanted criminals in the world. One evening, young Dawood sat outside a tea stall watching older boys gamble. "Yo kid, what you looking at?" one of them asked. "Just watching," Dawood replied quietly. He didn't talk much, but he watched everything. That was his real weapon, observation. The first taste of crime. By his teenage years, Dawood had started running errands for small-time crooks. Nothing crazy at first, just petty stuff. Stealing watches, selling stolen radios, moving smuggled goods from one lane to another. But Mumbai in the 1970s, that place was a gold mine for smugglers. Imports were restricted, luxury goods were rare, which meant one thing: smuggling paid big money. And one name ruled the docks back then: Haji Mastan. The man was legendary. White suits, dark glasses, smooth talk, big influence. Young Dawood admired him from a distance, not like a fan, like a student. The dockyards, where money changed hands. Late nights at the docks were chaotic. Cargo ships rolled in, boxes disappeared, customs officers got paid to look the other way. One night, Dawood stood beside an older smuggler named Karim Lala's associates. "Kid, carry this crate," one man ordered. "What's inside?" Dawood asked. The man smirked. "You don't ask questions, you carry." Dawood carried. Inside that crate, gold bars. That was the moment he realized something. Crime wasn't just chaos, it was business. The turning point. Clash with the police. Here's where things got messy. Dawood's early crimes didn't go unnoticed. Mumbai police began tracking petty thieves and smugglers. One evening, police raided a location tied to his group. Dawood barely escaped. But that incident changed everything. At home, his father confronted him. "You're walking a dangerous road," Ibrahim Kasker said sternly. "I ain't scared," Dawood replied. His father slammed his hand on the table. "You should be." That night, Dawood made a decision. If he was going to break the law, he wouldn't stay small time. He'd go big, real big. Breaking away, forming his own crew. By the mid-1970s, Dawood stopped working under older smugglers. He started building his own network, young guys from Dongri, hungry guys, guys who wanted money and respect. Among them was his older brother, Dawood Ibrahim Kasker. Dawood was bold, more aggressive than Dawood. While Dawood planned, Dawood acted. Together, they made a dangerous combo, brains and muscle. The rise begins. Street power. Soon, their gang wasn't just smuggling. They were robbing warehouses, extorting shop owners, running protection rackets, controlling territory. And they weren't scared to use violence. One shopkeeper once refused to pay protection money. Bad move. A few nights later, his windows shattered. Message sent. Clear and loud. Pay up or pay the price. Rivalries start brewing. But Mumbai's underworld wasn't empty. It already had kings, and one powerful figure stood in their way: Pathan gang. They didn't like newcomers, especially bold ones. Tension started building, and in the underworld, tension usually ends in blood. The city takes notice. By the late 1970s, the name Dawood was spreading through Mumbai's underworld. Police files started stacking. Intelligence reports mentioned him more often. He wasn't just a street kid anymore. He was becoming a player,
a serious one, and he had bigger dreams. Not just ruling Dongri, not just ruling Mumbai, he wanted something bigger, an empire.
Blood on the streets, the war that created D Company. Mumbai, early 1980s. The city was changing fast. Smuggling money was flowing like crazy. Gangs were multiplying, and the underworld wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about domination. And right in the middle of that storm stood Dawood Ibrahim. But every rise has enemies, and Dawood's biggest ones were closing in. Tension turns deadly. Back then, the underworld was controlled by older, established groups. One of the most powerful among them was the gang linked to Karim Lala, widely known as the Pathan Syndicate. They controlled territory, they controlled smuggling routes, and they didn't like competition, especially not from young upstarts like Dawood and his brother Shabir Ibrahim Kaskar. One evening, inside a smoky gambling den, tension finally snapped. A Pathan gang member leaned toward Shabir. "You boys think you own the streets now?" he said coldly. Shabir didn't flinch. "We take what we earn. Ain't nobody handing us nothing." That line didn't sit well. Not at all. From that point on, war was inevitable. The hit that changed everything. In 1981, violence hit close. Too close. One afternoon, Shabir Ibrahim was walking near Dongri. It was supposed to be just another day, but ambushes don't send warnings. Gunshots cracked through the crowded street. People screamed. Shops slammed shut. When the smoke cleared, Shabir lay bleeding on the ground. He didn't survive. The killing was widely linked to rivals from the Pathan faction associated with Karim Lala's network. For Dawood, this wasn't just business anymore. It was personal, very personal. A brother's rage. News reached Dawood within minutes. He rushed to the scene. Police had already arrived. Yellow barricades blocked the street. Crowds whispered in shock. Dawood stood silent, face cold, eyes locked on his brother's covered body. One of his men stepped close. "What we do now?" he whispered. Dawood spoke slowly. "We hit back." No shouting, no drama, just quiet certainty. That was the moment revenge became the mission. Retaliation began. After Shabir's death, Dawood didn't react blindly. He planned, studied, picked targets carefully. One by one, rivals were attacked. Shootings, ambushes, street battles. Mumbai's underworld started looking like a war zone. Residents heard gunfire in neighborhoods that once only heard traffic noise. Police records from that time show a sharp rise in gang violence. Fear spread fast. Nobody wanted to be caught between rival gangs. Birth of a syndicate. Around this period, Dawood formalized his network. This wasn't just a loose gang anymore. It became an organized syndicate, structured, disciplined, strategic. That network became known as D Company. Inside the group, roles were assigned. Some handled smuggling, some handled finance, some handled enforcement, others handled intelligence. It started looking less like street crime and more like corporate crime, just illegal. Highly illegal. Around the same time, another figure rose alongside Dawood, Chota Rajan. Originally a small-time ticket black marketer near Mumbai cinemas, Rajan had street instincts, and he knew loyalty mattered. One night during a strategy meeting, Rajan spoke up. "We don't just fight," he said. "We control the money." Dawood nodded. That's the real power. From that point, Rajan became one of Dawood's key lieutenants. The partnership made D Company stronger, much stronger. The police step in. By now, Mumbai police were fully aware. Shootings were increasing, extortion complaints were piling up, smuggling networks were expanding. Senior officers started building files on Dawood's operations. Raids increased, arrests followed. But Dawood stayed one step ahead, always moving, always planning, always protected by loyal insiders. Some officers suspected corruption inside enforcement networks. That made things even harder. Money starts flowing. Violence gave them power, but money gave them survival.
D Company expanded into gold smuggling, electronics smuggling, hawala money transfers, protection rackets, real estate intimidation. They weren't just criminals anymore, they were businessmen in the shadows. Huge profits flowed through illegal routes, and Dawood was thinking bigger, much bigger. Not just Mumbai, not just India, the world. The first signs of global vision. By the mid-1980s, Dawood understood something important. Mumbai alone wasn't safe. Police pressure was rising, rivals still existed. So he started building international links. Dubai became a key location, a safe space, a hub for smuggling operations, and from there, expansion began. Quietly, strategically, dangerously. Mumbai becomes a battlefield. Meanwhile, back in Mumbai, gang wars continued. Shootouts happened in public areas, cinema halls, markets, residential streets. Fear became part of daily life. People whispered names like Dawood and Pathan gangs like urban legends, but this wasn't myth, this was reality, and it was getting worse.
Late 1980s. Mumbai was getting way too hot. Police pressure was rising, rivals were still lurking, and the streets that once made Dawood Ibrahim powerful were now becoming dangerous ground. That's when he made one of the smartest and most critical moves of his career. He left India and headed to Dubai. That move didn't just save him, it transformed D Company into something global. The escape plan. By the late 1980s, Dawood knew the heat was closing in. Police raids were increasing, cases were stacking up. Some of his associates had already been picked up. One night, inside a private room, a few of his trusted men gathered. Among them was Chota Rajan. "We can't keep running forever in Mumbai," Rajan said. Dawood leaned back in his chair. "Then we stop running," he replied, calmly. "How?" someone asked. "We move." That decision changed everything. Using forged documents and contacts, Dawood quietly left India and settled in Dubai, a city that was quickly becoming a hub for trade and international business. And for smugglers, it was paradise. Dubai, a safe haven. Back then, Dubai was booming, trade was exploding, money was flowing, and regulations weren't as tight as they are today. Perfect conditions for underground networks. Dawood didn't live like a fugitive there. He lived like a businessman. Luxury apartments, private meetings, international connections. From Dubai, he could control operations in Mumbai without stepping foot there. One associate reportedly joked during a meeting, "Boss, you're running Mumbai from another country." Dawood smiled slightly. That's the idea. The expansion begins. From Dubai, D Company began expanding rapidly. This wasn't just about smuggling anymore. It became a multi-layered operation. They moved into gold smuggling, silver smuggling, electronics imports, hawala money transfers, real estate manipulation, film financing. Yes, even the film industry started feeling their presence. Some producers were allegedly pressured to cast certain actors or finance projects using money linked to the underworld. Not always openly, sometimes subtly, sometimes forcefully. Money without borders. Hawala networks became one of D Company's strongest tools. Money moved across countries without traditional banking systems. Fast, quiet, hard to trace. Cash collected in Mumbai could appear in Dubai within hours. One handler reportedly explained it like this: "No banks, no paperwork, just trust." That system helped D Company grow into a financial powerhouse, and law enforcement struggled to keep up. The rise of Chota Rajan. Back in India, Chota Rajan was handling ground operations. He managed collection networks, territory disputes, enforcement teams. Rajan had street credibility, and Dawood trusted him. During phone calls between Dubai and Mumbai, conversations were brief and focused. Collections, running smooth, Rajan replied. Police pressure, handled. Short words, big consequences. New enemies, bigger wars. As D Company grew, rivalries intensified. Old gang networks weakened, new ones tried to rise. But Dawood's international reach gave him an advantage.
Weapons could be sourced faster, money moved faster, information traveled faster. That combination made D Company extremely dangerous and extremely difficult to stop. Political and intelligence attention. By the early 1990s, intelligence agencies had started tracking D Company more seriously. Not just Mumbai police, not just Indian agencies. International attention was growing because the syndicate wasn't limited to India anymore. Operations were reported across the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and parts of Africa. Law enforcement agencies began sharing intelligence, but tracking a network spread across countries, that wasn't easy, not back then. The beginning of internal tensions. Despite the success, cracks were starting to form inside the organization. Success brings pressure, money brings ego, power brings suspicion, and small disagreements started surfacing between key members, particularly between Dawood and some senior lieutenants. At the time, those tensions were minor, but they wouldn't stay that way, not for long. The power peak. By the early 1990s, D Company had reached peak influence. From the slums of Dongri to luxury buildings in Dubai, from street fights to international smuggling routes, it was no longer just a gang, it was an empire. And Dawood Ibrahim wasn't just a gangster anymore. He was being described as a global crime boss. The calm before the storm. But something big was coming, something that would change India forever, something that would bring worldwide attention to D Company and turn Dawood Ibrahim into one of the most wanted men on the planet. That event would be linked to 1993 Bombay bombings. And when that happened, everything changed.
The blasts that shook a nation. Early 1990s. India was changing fast. The economy was opening up, cities were growing, and Mumbai, the financial capital, was buzzing day and night. But beneath the lights, tension was building. And inside the shadows, D Company had reached its peak power under Dawood Ibrahim. Nobody knew yet that the next chapter would shake the entire country. The tension before the storm. In late 1992, communal tensions spread across parts of India after the Babri Masjid demolition. Riots broke out in several cities, including Mumbai. Fear and anger spread through neighborhoods. Communities that once lived side by side became suspicious of each other. Businesses shut early. Police were stretched thin. The streets felt different, heavier, more dangerous. Inside underworld circles, rumors began spreading about retaliation and revenge plots, not random violence, organized violence. And intelligence agencies later suspected that elements connected to D Company were becoming part of those plans. Meetings in the shadows. Investigations later revealed that multiple meetings had taken place outside India. Some were reportedly linked to locations in Dubai, others connected to movements through Pakistan. During interrogations, arrested suspects described discussions about planning large-scale attacks, not street violence, something bigger, much bigger. One suspect later recalled investigators asking who gave the instructions. The answer was never simple. The structure was layered. Orders passed through multiple handlers. Names surfaced during investigations, including associates linked to Tiger Meeman, who was widely identified in police reports as a key logistics figure. Authorities believed explosives were smuggled into India through coastal routes, the same routes used once for gold smuggling. Only this time, the cargo was far deadlier. March 12, 1993, the day Mumbai stopped. Friday afternoon, March 12, 1993. Mumbai was busy as always. Offices were open, markets were crowded, traffic was heavy. Then it happened. A massive explosion tore through the Bombay Stock Exchange. Glass shattered, cars flipped, smoke filled the air, people screamed. Before emergency services could even respond, another blast hit, and then another, and then another. A series of coordinated explosions rocked the city. Targets included financial centers, hotels, public locations, busy commercial areas. The attacks were later known as the 1993 Bombay bombings. It became one of the deadliest terror attacks in India's history. Hundreds of lives were lost, many more were injured. Mumbai had never seen anything like it. Shock across the nation. Hospitals overflowed, police sirens echoed across the city. Television networks broadcast non-stop coverage. Families searched for missing loved ones. The nation watched in disbelief. Within hours, investigations began. Security agencies launched massive operations, and slowly, connections began to surface. Investigators traced financial transactions, recovered weapons, interrogated suspects, and again, the trail pointed toward networks linked to D Company. Authorities alleged involvement of individuals connected to Dawood Ibrahim and his associates. From that moment on, his name became known worldwide, not just as a gangster, but as a suspect in one of the most devastating attacks in Indian history. The fallout, a major split. Inside the underworld, trust collapsed, especially between Dawood Ibrahim and Chota Rajan. Rajan reportedly opposed actions that targeted civilians. He believed such attacks would bring massive attention from law enforcement, and he wasn't wrong. During a tense conversation reported by investigators later, Rajan allegedly confronted Dawood. "This ain't business anymore," Rajan said. "This is war," Dawood replied coldly. That disagreement created a major fracture. Soon after, Chota Rajan split from D Company. That split triggered a new wave of gang rivalry, this time between former allies. Global manhunt begins. After the bombings, India launched one of the biggest criminal investigations in its history. Multiple suspects were arrested, trials lasted for years, and authorities issued international alerts. Dawood Ibrahim became one of the most wanted fugitives. His name appeared on international watch lists. Later, agencies including Interpol issued notices connected to investigations. The Indian government pursued diplomatic channels. Pressure increased globally. Reports suggested Dawood moved locations frequently to avoid capture. Dubai was no longer safe. New havens were rumored, but official confirmation remained limited. Mumbai under siege. After 1993, Mumbai changed forever. Security tightened, police powers expanded, gang surveillance increased, and underworld operations became riskier. Shootouts between rival gangs increased, especially between factions loyal to Dawood and those aligned with Chota Rajan. What once started as smuggling wars had turned into full-scale organized crime battles. The empire under pressure. Despite the crackdown, D Company didn't disappear. It adapted, shifted operations, moved money through new channels, used proxies, changed locations. The empire that started in Dongri was now global, but also under constant pressure. And the man behind it all was now living in hiding.
The most wanted ghost, the hunt that never ends. Mid-1990s onward. After the 1993 Bombay blasts, everything changed. Not just for Mumbai, not just for India, but for Dawood Ibrahim himself. From that moment, he wasn't just a crime boss anymore. He became one of the most wanted fugitives in the world, and the manhunt had officially begun. The disappearance.
Right after the blasts, authorities began searching aggressively. Raids happened across Mumbai. Warehouses were sealed, bank accounts were tracked, suspects were arrested. But Dawood? Gone. Vanished. Authorities believed he had moved between Dubai and locations inside Pakistan, though official confirmations remained limited and politically sensitive. Inside intelligence circles, he was described as a ghost with an empire. A senior investigator reportedly told his team, "He don't stay in one place long, that's how he survives." And that survival strategy kept him free for decades. The gang war explodes. After splitting from D Company, Chota Rajan became one of Dawood's biggest enemies. This wasn't just rivalry, this was betrayal. And betrayal in the underworld usually ends in violence. Shootouts between the two factions increased through the late 1990s. Hitmen were deployed, targets were tracked across cities, former allies became sworn enemies. One gang member reportedly told investigators, "Once you switch sides, there's no going back." Law enforcement agencies recorded multiple killings tied to the ongoing feud. Mumbai once again became tense, not chaotic like before, but constantly alert. International pressure builds. As investigations deepened, the pressure expanded beyond India. Agencies worldwide began tracking suspected financial networks linked to D Company. Not just police, governments, intelligence agencies, financial regulators. Over time, Interpol notices were circulated, and intelligence agencies began monitoring suspected offshore transactions. Years later, Federal Bureau of Investigation and other global agencies tracked suspected international links tied to criminal activities. Financial tracking became the new battlefield. Not bullets, money, because money kept the empire alive. Sanctions and global isolation. By the early 2000s, international actions intensified. The United Nations Security Council imposed sanctions against individuals and entities suspected of connections to criminal and terror-related financing networks. Assets were frozen, travel became restricted, financial movements became harder. The pressure wasn't just legal anymore, it was global. One intelligence official later summarized the situation like this: "Cut the money, you cut the power." That became the strategy. Follow the cash, freeze the roots, disrupt the network. The capture of rivals. While Dawood remained elusive, some of his rivals faced law enforcement action. One major development came in 2015. Chota Rajan was arrested in Bali after years on the run. His capture became global news. Authorities later extradited him to India, where he faced multiple criminal charges in court proceedings. For many investigators, this arrest proved something important. Even powerful fugitives could be tracked, eventually, given enough time. The changing face of crime. Over the years, D Company didn't disappear. It evolved, like any long-running syndicate. Operations reportedly shifted into international smuggling, financial crimes, real estate manipulation, extortion networks, fake currency distribution. But the world was changing too. Technology made surveillance stronger, communication tracking became faster, banking became more transparent. The old ways of smuggling became riskier, and every year pressure increased. The legend turns into mystery. Despite decades of investigations, one question still dominates headlines. Where is Dawood Ibrahim? Some intelligence reports claimed he lived under heavy security. Others suggested frequent movement between secure locations. Official statements varied. Rumors spread constantly. But confirmed sightings? Rare. Very rare. That uncertainty turned him into something unusual. Not just a criminal, a legend, a mystery figure, whose story started in Mumbai's slums and stretched across continents. The legacy of D Company. The story of D Company left deep marks on India's criminal history. It changed policing strategies, intelligence sharing, anti-smuggling operations, anti-terror investigations, financial crime tracking. Law enforcement systems became stronger because they had to. The threats became global, so the response had to be global. The final reality. From Dongri's crowded lanes to international crime networks to global watch lists, the rise of Dawood Ibrahim became one of the most studied crime stories in modern history. Not because it was glamorous, not because it was powerful, because it showed how fast crime can grow when money, influence, and violence combine, and how difficult it becomes to stop once it spreads worldwide. The end.